The Mad Max plotter is fast. It's really fast. And we're gonna go through that today with my results. I'm really shocked at the difference. I also have a rant incoming that you'll be able to see regarding some internet guy being able to compile the plots better, faster, more efficient, and just the same as the Chia team, which is insane. We're gonna go over the Windows port, how to set it up, the configuration, my results, and then some of the bottlenecks that I noticed. So stay along for the rant because it's probably going to be pretty big. Bia! All right, guys, so we're gonna be talking about the Mad Max plotter. I know I'm a little bit behind on this. I think it was released about a little bit over a week ago. I haven't been plotting because I've been waiting on pools, which have not come out yet. And so I've been trying to save my hardware for when pools come out. But I did want to try this out just to see if it was the new future of Chia plotting. So if you're not familiar, Mad Max is a new plotter, came out a couple of weeks ago maybe, and basically what it does is it implements similar methodology to GPU plotting, which is using the physical cores as opposed to software rendering. So the difference between this and the Chia plotter is that the Chia plotter allocates a software CPU thread versus the actual cores of the actual cores of the CPU. So the reason why when you plot with the Chia plotter, you can add more cores, however, it's still software CPU threads. So it's not using the actual cores of the CPU. This new software allows us to not only not use the Chia executable command line, but it allows us to maximize all threads and cores as hardware cores, not software rendered cores. So this allows us to basically max out any storage because the CPU cores are going to be faster than the actual storage that you have. Even if you have an NVMe and you have 12 cores, we'll see that in my test results. But this is incredible how much better it is and how much faster it is. I didn't believe it at first, but we'll take a look at the results. So the next thing I wanted to go through is a quick setup. It's very easy to set up on Windows. You basically just need to get your pool public key and your firmware public key. And the way to do that is you navigate to this location here, which is your C drive user app data, not the Chia other location. Notice that the Chia is in small letters, not with a capital C. So you navigate to this location in a PowerShell, and you type in this command here, which will give us our pool key and our farmer public key. Once we've done that, it'll show us the two keys. We go ahead to this location linked in the description to download the Mad Max plotter for Windows, and I extracted it to C drive Mad Max for simplicity. In the same PowerShell, we're going to go ahead and navigate to C drive Mad Max, and then we're going to type in this command here. This command, we're going to be replacing the bolded portions with what we have already found out. So the P key we replace with your public key, the F key we replace with your farmer key, and then N is the number of plots that you want. -1 means an infinite amount, so it'll just continue after plot after plot after plot. I use 1 because I just want to do some testing. -T, and this is important, is the temporary directory 1 and the temporary directory 2. Temporary directory 1 has 25% of the max writes. So if you want to save an NVMe's lifespan, you're going to use the NVMe for temporary directory 1. Temporary directory 2 has 75% of the writes. So if you want to go fast, you're probably going to have your faster hard drive on that temporary 2 in order for it to speed up. And we go through the tests on slower drives and faster drives with this configuration here. So then R is your final destination. So the last two little bits are going to be your threads and then the bucket size. The default bucket size is 256. The default bucket size for Chia plotter itself, the GUI, is 128, and you can't change that. So I don't know why they even have that as an option. I tried changing the buckets to 256 in the Chia GUI, and it wouldn't let me run a plot, so I don't know what that is. The number of cores is the number of threads and cores that your CPU has. So that's how simple it is. You don't need to install Chia, you just need to go ahead and download this and configure it with your public and farmer public key. Boom, you're off to the races. You can run this on any computer. Okay, so this is the setup that I ran my tests on. We've got Viper, Maverick, Goose, as well as my gaming PC. Now, none of these CPUs were overclocked yet, so this is all base configuration with the boost clocks set at their default configuration. I wanted to see a base without any overclocking. So the first Viper, we had 12 cores at 3.8. We have a 1 terabyte Samsung 980 as well as a 512 M.2 SSD. Then Maverick, we've got 12 cores again at 3.6 gigahertz. We've got the 1 terabyte NVMe Samsung 980. We have the same Samsung 980 in my gaming PC, which is a 9700, which is an 8-core at 4.5 gigahertz. So this one's boosts up, but it's not a K-value CPU, so it can't be overclocked. The final one in our destination with our full node is Goose, which is an 8-core, 3.9 gigahertz with a 512 M.2, a 1 terabyte Samsung NVMe, as well as a 240 SSD cache drive, which we're not using in this case, as it can only be utilized on certain SATA connections. So we're going to take a look at some of the bottlenecks that we ran into and some of the reasons why this is such an amazing new-ish, 2 weeks, I guess that's old on the internet, plotter. So right away we can see that when we're plotting to a slower SSD, we are maxing out the SSD and not maxing out our CPU threads. So if you do this against a mechanical hard drive, the read and write speeds are going to be a lot slower unless you have it in RAID or what have you. And you're not going to be able to utilize your full CPU capacity here. So we're tossing 12 threads at this. This is a slower SSD, and we're not able to max out our threads here. So you can see in the first phase, it's not quite maxed out. Here's another example of basically the SSD is pinned at 100% and the CPU is not consistent at 100%. You can see it's jumping up everywhere, up and down, because it's waiting for the slower SSD to be available to be able to write to it. So the bottleneck is going to be your SSD if it's slow. If it's a regular SSD, that's only 550 megs per second versus an NVMe, which is like 3,000 writes per second. So right away we can see where there's different bottlenecks on slower hard drives. We then moved to try and replicate a plot with the Chia GUI. It ended up failing. I do not know why, but we can also see here that neither the hard drive, which this is an NVMe, this drive here, or the CPU ever reaches max 100% efficiency. So we threw in all 8 cores and we're doing it on an NVMe, which should be wicked fast, but you can see the spikes and the continuous up and down sort of sharing with the hard disk and the CPU. None of them is maximized at 100% for a duration of any time because it's doing software rendering on the threads. So it's not actually using the cores, it's using software rendering on the threads of the cores, and that's why it's bouncing back and forth, 100% CPU, then 100% hard disk, back and forth. So this particular plot never completed. I have no clue why, I don't give a shit. I just didn't need to really work on it. I wanted to see how long it would take, but it never completed, so that speaks volumes. All right, so here are the results, and I wanted to do some testing with partitioning. and non-partitioning, as well as testing with temp1 and temp2 on an M.2 SSD and an NVMe, and see the time differences. So we were able to get through a ton of plots, which is insane, in less than a day. We'll go through that with my rant. So for now, with Maverick, we were able to test on the Samsung 980. We did a partitioned, we did a D&E drive partitioned. It was about an hour and 5 minutes, and then we ran the test, and it was about an hour and 1 minute. Then I unpartitioned it and reran the test, and it was still about an hour and 2 minutes. So that's within variance. That's within acceptable variance, and an hour to do a plot is, you get 24 plots on that, just like that, with an older 12-core CPU. We then moved to Viper, where we have a M.2 SSD, and we also have another Samsung 980 on it. It's at about 3.8 gigahertz for this 12-core. When we put the M.2, which is the slower of the two, as the temp1, which is 25% of the time, we rendered a plot in an hour and 36 minutes. When we just used the Samsung 980, we cut that down by 20 minutes. By removing the M.2 SSD and just using the NVMe. So we cut it down by 20 minutes. Once we reversed it and used only 25% for temp1, which is the Samsung, and then 75% for temp2, it jumped up insanely to almost 3 hours. So 2 hours and 55 minutes, which, completely, that's a 10 plot a day difference by switching temp1 and temp2. So you really got to pay attention to which temp drive you're going to be using. If you want it to go fast, you got to use the 75% right on your fastest drive, and then you can have 25% right on your slower drive. We did the following tests here with Goose, with the 8-core CPU. We did not do a NVMe to NVMe test. I just wanted to do the flipping just to see how fast it would go. We did try to do the NVMe test with the Chia GUI, and that didn't finish. It just errored out. I don't know, halfway through it just kept retrying, so whatever. On my gaming PC, we were able to generate a plot at 1 hour and 19 minutes, and just for fun, I tried it on my work laptop, which thermal throttled like you wouldn't believe, but we were still able to get a plot in 2 hours and 28 minutes, which is absolutely hilarious. So one thing I want to see is this Goose. I want to do a quick test with just the NVMe, just to see how it is, but also I'm going to be overclocking all three of these computers just to see how many we can pump out. So at pure defaults, we were able to get 80 plots a day with just this configuration. This is 5 computers, I guess. The work laptops, it's a laptop, it's a piece of crap. But it still renders almost 10 plots a day, which would never happen with the chia plotting stuff. And now, if you've made it this far, you get the great luxury of listening to my rant on this new software. A little bit of it is spurned on by Bram, and I understand that he has limitations in terms of his Asperger's to communicate in a manner of which some would deem more appropriate. When the new plotter came out, his first reaction was a combative, this isn't as good as you think it is, ours is just as good, which it isn't. It absolutely isn't. There's thousands of examples of why this is way more efficient than your current one. Instead of wasting time on arguing about stupid little things, send out a message that says, we applaud the Chia community for creating a new form of plotter that utilizes the hardware and resources more efficiently, a little bit faster, and it may be or may not be better than ours. However, we applaud you guys for working on it. Do not send out a stupid fucking message that says it's not better than ours, this is why, and then start arguing on the internet. hire the fucking guy who developed something that literally took out your chia.exe plotter command line. It completely made it a standalone plot software, not utilizing your software. It decompiled all of that and created a more efficient, faster, better, user-friendly plotter. Don't argue about SSDs and all this other shit that he's fucking arguing about here. Nobody gives a fuck. Hire the guy, first off. You have millions of dollars of new investments, and say, hey, we're going to try and implement this into our new software to optimize it so that we can bring you the most secure, the fastest, and the most efficient plotting experience from the GUI that you can get. Don't fucking argue with us. People on the internet apparently are smarter than you right now, so stop wasting your time in writing all of this stupid nonsense and arguing with us, and say, congratulations, we like what you've done. We encourage people to keep finding new ways to plot better, and we're going to hire this guy. Or just fucking give him a contract and say, hey, we would like to take this code that you've done and this idea, and we want to implement it in the next version of Chia. But instead of doing that, this fucking guy is just so combative, and he's an asshole. I mean, he just comes off as an asshole. I understand he's got Asperger's, but he should not be the face of the company when he's arguing with people online about stupid shit, semantics. One, say, congratulations, we're taking notice of your new product that somebody has come out and made. Two, let's see if we can work together to make Chia the best it can be. And three, like, don't argue with people online. You should be making Chia. Stop fucking arguing with people online. They've had 2 updates to the Chia GUI since mainnet. 1.14 and 1.15. I guess, 1.14, 1.15, 1.16, and now 1.17. But they're so small, there's nothing revolutionary about the GUI. So instead of wasting your time online, just fucking say we acknowledge it. We're gonna reach out to the developer to see if he can, toss some ideas our way and maybe work with us, and we'll get back to you. Anyways, that's my rant. It kind of shows that this is a small company that literally is taking the time to adhere to all the stupid nonsense that's going on around it. Just focus on what you have to do and stop picking fights with people online. It's a fucking better system. So just accept it. Hire the fucking guy. You've got millions in investments and funding, and then just say thank you. Period. So anyways, that's it. That's my rant. The next video is going to be upgrading the speeds of the network, because I'm going to be having tons of computers finishing within hours, and they're all going to be sending to one server. So we need to make sure that server, the network switch, it has open bandwidth in order to accept 3 or 4 files at max speed of 300. So anyways, that was my rant, and this max plotter is fucking amazing. So this Mad Max plotter changes everything regardless of what Bram Cohen is arguing online. Anyways, with that said, this is too long. I will chia later.